to do Publisher briefly and then talk about InDesign. I'm still trying to get the licenses solidified for Adobe Creative Suite. However, there are some other free programs online that I think we can explore in terms of layout and photo editing that are similar to Adobe. I'm not sure how many of you have it, but if you can tap into like the free trial, that'll be good. They just put out 2021, so I would recommend like setting up a new account, but for the time being, don't use your school account simply because, well, you might have to use your school account to get the student discount. Let me talk to Dr. Daniels and the head of Campus Tech and then get back to y'all on Wednesday about how you should move forward with the Adobe Creative Suite, because from what I'm understanding is that they're trying to get the students access to the licenses here on campus. And since now the program is cloud-based, you should have access to it remotely, but they have not confirmed anything with me as of yet. So hopefully we can get that worked out by the end of the week. But first, before we even get into that, I want to look at Microsoft Publisher. If I have it on this computer. Oh, here we go. And Publisher is very similar to InDesign, but it's just not InDesign. It's similar to PowerPoint, where you have multiple pages and things like that, but it's a Microsoft-based program that's strictly for like page design and layout. Let me make sure I share screen. Okay, so for those of you who have access to Microsoft Office, you should have access to Microsoft Publisher. And this was a layout kind of situation I did for my studio class, I think last semester, because some of them did not have access to Photoshop. So just very similar. Let me start a new file. So I'm gonna just start an 8.5 by 11 blank page. Very similar to, what do you call it? Photoshop. You can add multiple pages over here. Let me see, and just insert 5. And you would go about inserting pictures. They have what you call page parts, which I've actually never used. They have existing layouts on here for you, so you can kind of take advantage of that. One thing I want to do with you guys, I just saw something that said stories on here, is what my mind went to. One thing I want to do with you guys that really was brought to my attention by SOM was, what do you call it, visual storytelling. So that will be something that we investigate as well. So they have different things for quotes that you can lay out on here. So if you were to lay out a page, you can still insert pictures. Of course, you can change the fill to your quotes or something like that. So remember how we talked about maybe having a large quote, a dominant photo on a page, and then some text about your particular project or something of that nature. I don't particularly like this one, so I'm gonna change it, but it allows you to essentially, if you go to page parts, it allows you to put in different things. So you can put in headings, and of course they're all within these relatively basic styles, and they already choose the title text and the subtitle text for you. So this is something that you can kind of play around with if you have access to the Microsoft Office suite. Very, very similar to what's it called? PowerPoint. And what you can do, I think you can add a master page or slide. Is everybody familiar with master pages? Yes, no, maybe?
No.
Okay, so when you set up a master page, and this is similar in InDesign as well, when you set up a master page, you can sorry, apparently I can't talk and do it. When you set up a master page, essentially you have a specific layout that you've already worked out or inserted or, you know, imported from somewhere else. And then the master page will have that set up for the entire presentation or the entire booklet. So that's what the master pages are for. But yeah, I would just encourage you to play with this. I'm trying to see if they have the option for, they have the option for rulers. You can do a 2-page spread here. So that's kind of the difference between this and PowerPoint, because this is intended for booklets and printed material, where PowerPoint is intended for setting up visual presentations that you can print out, but that's not its overall purpose. It's something that you're supposed to project. It's going to be virtual or digital, whereas this is for print material. So you have the option of doing a 2-page spread, a single page spread. You could set up a master page here and then apply it to, you can apply it to all pages. You can apply it to a current page, etc. So I'll show you what I mean. So right now we're in the view of the master page. So I'm just going to put in a draw text box situation. Wait a minute. You should be able to add guides. It's been a while since I've worked on this, so please be patient with me. So we're at an 8.5 by 11 sheet. So I'm gonna go about 5.5. Trying to get it about midway. Yeah, 5.5 is about midway. So I might have text over here, super small text, but text nonetheless. And I'm just going to shrink this box a little bit and center it. So maybe this is a project description. Doesn't make any real, sense in terms of text. I'm just trying to create the text block so you can see it. You should be able to edit it later. But for the sake of like a master page, you can insert page parts in the master page. So you can insert what do you want to call it? You can insert headings. What I want to do is insert a title. We're not going to do text box. You change this font to something a little more dominant. And we'll just call this visual story. Somebody sent me a chat. What does the chat say?
Are you still on Publisher?
Yes, I'm still a Microsoft Publisher.
And are you making changes to, as you're explaining?
Yes. Do you not see it?
No, ma'am. I still
Okay.
see project title and content map and stuff.
All right, let me see. Do you see anything that says visual story?
I see it now.
Okay. It might have been because I changed it over to the master slide. So what I was doing, let me plug in my computer. What I was doing was just creating a text block and adding in a title that I might want to repeat on every page. Another thing that you can do is if you have a footer, like with your name and your address or something of that nature, you could put that on the title master as well. Hold on 1 second, I'll plug my computer in. So here we are. We got a box of text or paragraph text. I'm probably going to make this font a little bigger. So this is just, again, setting up how you would like things to look. You can add a footer that says your name, visual storybook, (2021) or something like that. And then it'll come up once we apply the master to whatever, like if we want to apply it to all pages, then it'll come up on, this will come up on every page. Visual story will come up on every page. You kind of get what I'm saying? So it'll repeat the same layout to every slide that you assign it to. So now I'm applying to all pages just because. All right, and now I'm going back to, wait, no. Escape. Going back to home. How do I get out of the master page? Okay, so I'm closing the master page. And now I'm back here. And so now you can see that everything, like every single page will have that on it just because I applied it to that page. Now you can go back and you can apply it to certain pages. You could do multiple master pages and just apply it to certain slides. It just all depends on you. But if you have a repeat title or a repeat header or footer, excuse me, rather than trying to do it for each individual slide or duplicating the slide over and over again, you can do a slide master and it makes it a lot easier. But aside from that, it really is just like PowerPoint and you're just adding things in The only thing that you cannot do here, really, you could do a little bit of it in, let me see what else I got in here. You could do a little bit of it in PowerPoint, I think. It's like edit photos. That's where we have issues with like the Microsoft-based programs, because that's not what they're built for. All right. You can apply, what I did was I applied this picture to the background so it fill up the entire page. This is just a picture I took while I was in New York doing something, running the streets. So these are just things, just keep in mind, you have multiple tools that you can use. Sorry about that. All right, so that's kind of Microsoft Publisher. I would advise you, if you can, go in, play around with it. The best way to kind of learn these programs is just to assign yourself like a small project or something like that, or lay out a small portfolio. If there's a trip or something that you went on and you want to make a small portfolio out of that, you could do that. There's a particular project that you focused on that was well documented last semester, you could focus on that, but I would just practice kind of inserting titles, play with different layouts, things of that nature for your advancement. All right, so let me go to InDesign. And while you don't have access to this program yet, we are working on getting you there. Did anybody have any questions about Publisher? Hi, Miss Kathy. Nobody had any questions about Publisher? Everybody kind of gets the gist of it? Okay, so I'm going to go to close. And as you can see, they have different layout sizes where you can make cards, cookbooks, whatever, any type of, they have templates for just about any type of printed material, labels, whatever. So if you're used to doing presentations in Microsoft PowerPoint, then Publisher should be an easy kind of switch. Okay, now let's go to our Adobe Creative Suite and look at InDesign. We're just going to go over some InDesign basics today. I don't know why I have Adobe 2021 and 2020, but work it out. So what I would like you guys to do this week, last semester, what two projects did y'all work on in studio? You did the architect's house, I mean, like your client house, like you had to pick a client and do that, and then what?
The library, like architecture library for the
Architecture
campus.
library by the, so like by the chapel or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I would like you to do and like preparation for preparing your portfolio, if you haven't already, let's start scanning in our documentation from those projects. So if one or both of those projects was really strong, you want to scan in the floor plan sections elevations. Because another thing you're going to be learning in Professor Daniel's class, have y'all started getting into AutoCAD yet? AutoCAD, Revit, one of those
we talked
programs?
about it, but like we're like downloading it. We haven't really like done anything.
Okay, so you should have access to an AutoCAD free trial or Revit free trial. Because what I like to do for this class is have you take an architect's project and recreate it in AutoCAD, and then we'll begin rendering it and laying it out in design, so that when it's time for you to do your portfolios, you can essentially be doing the same thing. So you can be redoing your projects in AutoCAD, like hardline, drafting them in AutoCAD, rendering them, poching them, and then by the end of the semester, you should have one of your projects hardline and one of the, like an architect's project hardline, so that you can include it in your portfolio for this design presentation course and to get into the third year program. I hope that made sense. All right, so does everybody see Adobe InDesign?
Yes.
Okay, cool. How many of you are familiar with this program? You can just kind of, in your reactions, raise your hand. Okay, so, nope, we don't want to open, we want to create new. So the thing about your professor is she has like certain programs that she's really, really kind of savvy with. Like Adobe Photoshop is my jam. I've been working with that program for over 20 years now. So that's like my thing. InDesign keeps switching up on me. So you're going to have to bear with me as I remember these things. All right, so we're creating a new, we are creating a new project. And I never want to use, as far as our units, they always give you the option of doing like pixels or centimeters or whatever. Because I don't know what that is. Pixels are those tiny little, it's like tiny little fragments that build up a photo or an image. So if those of you who are familiar with photography, it'll be like such and such pixels per inch. We're going to be measuring out any of our layouts in, what do you call it? Inches. So I'm actually going to do an 11 by 17 inch. So it doesn't allow me to type it in anymore. A lot has changed with Adobe. Maybe I'll do an 8 by 8. Let's do an 8 by 8. What I'm going to be using this for is to create a visual storytelling book. And when I talk about visual storytelling, essentially going through a project with not necessarily explaining everything through architectural drawings, but explaining it through imagery. So say you were doing a community project on somewhere in Tuskegee, and you wanted to give people an idea of, you know, what the town is about and its history, then you would be collecting like photos, not photos, I was thinking videos, photos and videos and images that show the context of the town of Tuskegee. Maybe like do some type of photo walkthroughs of certain corridors, show the people and different things that are important to them, maybe the businesses and crafts, some flashes of the history. So that's what I mean by visual storytelling. We're going to do, an odd number of pages. No, that's not true. I should do an even number of pages. We'll put in 12. We want the pages to be facing. Orientation is going to be, well, it doesn't matter because it's a square. Then you can specify your margin. Everybody sees what I'm doing over here.
Yeah.
Okay, why did I do that? Now it's going to start me over. Let me go back to inches. Now it's at 11 by 17, whatever. Choose your dimensions of your particular book or whatever that you're creating. For us, it's going to be a portfolio. 5-inch margins, pretty standard, or 0.5-inch margins, a 1/2-inch margin is pretty standard. And then we're going to we can do a preview just to make sure that we are set up the way we want to be set up. I want facing pages though. Let's make sure we hit that so that we get a booklet format. I'm actually going to take this back to 8 inches because that's what I prefer. 8 by 8. And all right, so whenever you're doing a booklet, you want to make sure after you choose your inches or whatever and your orientation that you hit facing pages. Because if you don't hit facing pages, it's going to give you like individual slides similar to what you would get in PowerPoint. Same thing with, what's the other program we just did? Publisher. So then you could change it. The bleed and slug, we can get into that another time, but this is all just kind of standard stuff. And now we're going to create. So here I have an 8 by 8 page. What's cool about the Adobe Creative Suite is that when you, why is it doing this to me? It's got me stuck in something that I don't want it to be stuck in. Layout is fine. Okay, the cool thing about Adobe Creative Suite is that as you're editing photos and images in Photoshop, depending on how you insert your imagery into Adobe, it will, there's something called Adobe Bridge. And Adobe Bridge will allow you to take a photo or take a monogram or some type of vector-based or pixel-based imagery. And if you insert it in InDesign, you can click on that thing and it'll like open up a sidebar in Photoshop. And you can edit it in Photoshop, and whatever edits you make in Photoshop, you will see in InDesign. I hope that explanation made sense. Why is my master not doing what I want it to do? Mr. Huff. Mr. Huff, why are you so late for my class? Good morning. I don't want a master. I don't want a master. I don't want a master. I already selected how many pages I want. Did I do that? I didn't. That's why I'm only seeing one. No master. I'm not going to do a master for this because I'm still just kind of playing around. Okay, so if you forget to put in your pages when you're setting up, you can always go to properties and like adjust your layout, or you can go to pages and add additional pages. So you can go here, there's a little plus sign down in the bottom and just add them that way, like hit multiple plus signs. Or you can, what did I just do? I forgot what I did. It's difficult for me to explain this to you while I'm doing it. So I'm gonna work that out in my brain. Either way, let's go back to pages. We're going to start with the cover page. So I don't want this as a master. I don't want a master for now. So what I was saying about InDesign. So let's kind of change this. Let's add our grids and guides. We show baseline grid. Why don't I see it? View, grids and guides. Show document grid. There we go. So I like to work with the grid because it helps me determine how many fields I'm going to use as I'm laying out things in anything, in any design layout. It just helps me understand the paper space a lot better. Now, with InDesign, you can start, of course, adding your title tools, your types, your title types or whatever. And I'm going to say, the sake of this, I'm calling this the legacy project. So I'm actually working on a thing in real life. So I'm going to work on that in this class. Stop. I want to change my fonts. Excuse me. View, window, toolbar. Where are my fonts? Workspace, printing view, typography. So what I just did was I went to window and I went to, trying to make sure I explain this to you as I say it, workspace, and I did typography. You can do book and it'll change like your whole toolbar over here. You can do, now this is all different types of workspaces that you have the option of using. You can do digital publishing, like if you're laying out a website or something of that nature, or just doing a digital portfolio. You can, I'm going back to workspace. You can do interactive for PDF. You kind of get what I'm saying? So there's different types of workspaces that you can set it to as you are kind of setting up how you want to work in this space. So for me, it's set up your pages, decide how many pages you want. You can always add, you want to do an even number so you have a front and a back page, and then add your grid, which we went to view, grids and guides, and then you click on document grid, not baseline grid, because baseline grid shows you something else apparently. So you want to do your document grid, and then for your window, you can change your workspace, and I'm going to do a book right now. All right. And so then it has like indexes, conditional text, bookmarks, all types of different little funky things that you can add. But I did that so that I would make sure I have my toolbar up here for my font over in this upper part of the screen. And I'm changing it to something more cool. One thing I haven't quite figured out with Adobe InDesign is you can go online typically and add in fonts. Okay, let me step back. Because the Adobe Creative Suite is now what you call cloud-based, like it's ran off the internet versus you downloading it on your computer. some things are not as easy to do as they previously were when it was just downloaded to your computer. So when I was downloaded to my computer, what I could do was go online, Google certain top font types, and use those font types at, a lot of times I would go to this thing called dafont.com, DAFONT.com, and I could pick and choose different types of fonts that I wanted to use and then insert them in my font file for Adobe. But because it's cloud-based now, I haven't quite figured that out. I'm probably going to change this font over the course of life, but just for the sake of, you know, getting things on the screen, I'm putting it on here. So to move this text box around, I can hit my selection tool, direct selection tool, which is the arrow that's filled in, and just kind of push it down on the screen. Wait, I didn't want to do that. Edit, undo, move. Best tool is your undo tool. Or you can go back in your history and change it, or at least you can do that in Photoshop. Undo, move, undo, move. You can keep pressing Control Z until it's back to the state where you want it to be. It's not doing it. Anyway. All right, so correction. Don't want to use this tool because this tool will distort whatever you're selecting. You want to use the unfilled in arrow so you can move it around on your screen without distorting the text box. Just FYI. But now I got this little cool angle to the text box that I didn't intend to have, and I can fill that in later. So remember what I was saying about photographs. So with inserting photographs, you want to use your rectangle frame tool, and you can do multiple types of frames. You can do elliptical frames, polygonal frames, whatever. For this, I'm going to use rectangular frame. And I'm going to fill my page with this. And now I have an X here. So I'm going to take this selection tool and I'm going to, nope, that's not what I want to do. It's not letting me do what I want to do. Go to File and Place. And I'm going to place a photograph in here. Let me see. Photograph that I want is not on here. So I'm going to use this one. And now I have filled this page with that. It's placed in here. Placing versus copy pasting is very important because placing it gives you the option to link it through Adobe Bridge to Adobe Photoshop. Then you can take you can click on it, go to Adobe Photoshop, and edit the photograph. So give me a second, you guys. Because you can't really edit photos too much in InDesign. InDesign is just for laying out. I want to send this backwards. So I'm going to essentially right click on the screen with my arrow, selection arrow tool, and hit send backward. Probably going to go back here and edit this text. I want fill. We're going to talk about RGB and the different color types later. I kind of went over this with my studio class the other day. There are different ways that you can enter a certain color, but depending on what you're using your documentation for, it will come out clearer. For instance, if you're doing like a web-based document, like a web-based portfolio, and you've chosen a color palette, more often than not, you want to enter in the CMYK code because it'll give you more clarity on the web. If you're using a printed or developing a printed document, something that you're actually going to print out, and you want your colors to remain consistent, you got a whole color palette situation together, which we'll go on over in detail later, then you can use either the RGB code or this code down here, which applies to your Pantone code. And this is kind of like one of those things that's relatively known amongst graphic designers, because this is essentially what you're doing in this class. You're learning about graphic design and layout, etc. So I want to do something funky to this photo. So please bear with me. Let me see if I remember how to do this. I want to graphics, reveal and bridge. Do you want to locate import? Yes. So I right-clicked on my thing. I don't see it on here. Okay, here we go. They got all these new updates and things. All right, cool. So essentially I right-clicked on my photo and I said reveal, and I went down to graphics, which was all the way at the bottom of the toolbar. And I said reveal and bridge. Now I'm going to click on this. And I want to open with Adobe Photoshop. So I clicked on the thumbnail and now it's going to open Adobe Photoshop for me. So whatever I do to this photograph in Adobe Photoshop will automatically transfer to my InDesign layout because I placed the picture, number one, and then I accessed it through Adobe Bridge. So now that the document is tied to both programs. Does that make sense? All right, so now I'm in Photoshop. And I know it kind of looks pretty similar, but Photoshop does a completely different thing from InDesign. As Illustrator does something different from Photoshop, but you'll get to kind of play with all of these programs this semester. So Photoshop is used for photo editing, obviously, because it's called Photoshop. I'm going to play with the saturation of this image. I actually want to change the overall hue of it, not necessarily make it black and white, but make it kind of with a brown overlay. So I'm looking for it. We can play with it. We can make it black and white if we want to. And then it'll have, you know, this whole situation, it'll automatically wash it out for you. If you want more red tones in it, you can up the red tones. If you want more yellow tones in it, so you can play with these different things. All right, and if you don't like it, you can always go back and change it. What I want to do is hue and saturation. Let's see. That's what I was thinking about. The hue I want to change. This is not what I'm looking to do. Colorize. There we go. That's what I want to do. So I changed the hue. I clicked on colorize. The saturation a little bit different. So I kind of want that sepia tone. There's another way to do this in variations. We'll just have to go back and show you. But either way, I've played with my photograph. It's not necessarily exactly what I want, but something similar. Hit OK. Now, gotta save. Save. Okay. And then I'll close under the bridge. And now I'm going to minimize bridge. Wait, go back in InDesign. Did it do it? There we go. Now I've updated it. So whenever, I don't know if y'all just saw that, but whenever I go to Photoshop and update anything, if it doesn't automatically do it, there will be a little triangle, like a little yellow triangle with an exclamation point in it that'll pop up near this link. And then once you click on that triangle, it'll update the photo for you. Okay, so that's kind of some of our Photoshop basics. Of course, Photoshop and InDesign basics. Of course, I can go in here and start adding more text boxes and determining how I want to lay this out. But this was just to give you an idea of some of the capabilities of this program versus your Microsoft-based programs. So it's the tie to Photoshop that sets it apart, because it allows you to immediately edit your photos without having to go through a lot of back and forth. When 20 years ago, when I started this program, it did not have Adobe Bridge. So it was like I had to edit all of my stuff in Photoshop and then take it out of Photoshop, save each picture individually, and then bring it into InDesign, which was time consuming. So the Adobe Bridge option has made it a lot more efficient. Let me see. I want to look at your syllabus right quick because I want to see what, if anything, you have due for today or assignments you have. So I'm going to go in today and make sure that I put in the grade weight for each assignment and the due date, but I just want to check our schedule. So today we went over layouts in Publisher and started to go over some stuff in InDesign. So for Wednesday, I want you to choose an architecture project to begin documenting from your favorite architect. And you should be able to either go to the architecture library, find an architecture project. I would focus on something that's smaller in footprint, like a small house that may have been designed. I'll be working through David Ajay's house. And if you guys want to work on that project, I can send you the documentation for that project and we can all work on the same thing, or you can go ahead and choose an individual house that you're interested in working on. But I'll start showing you how to document things, set up your design drawings, scale it in CAD, and etc. But for Wednesday, you are to choose a project and start saving out those documents. So you're going to need floor plans, elevations, and a site plan, really. The section will help in terms of scaling. So if you can find a section of the building as well, then do that. But you want to kind of keep it simple and keep it within a smaller square footage, because transferring and redocumenting things in AutoCAD can sometimes be very time consuming. Okay, so that is what is due for Wednesday, is to find that project. If you're interested in doing David Ajay's house, let me know. Just shoot me an email. Does anyone have any questions? All right, so on Wednesday, you're expected to have those documents. Just save it in a file on your computer. Plans, sections, elevations, site plans. And if you see any photographs of the building itself, like different views, you want to save that stuff too. So create a file on your desktop that says ARC 211 and Architecture House Project or something like that, whatever you need to save it as, so you remember that this is your assignment. But that's what is due on Wednesday. I still have not posted anything to Blackboard because I still can't get into Blackboard. But this has been saved, casted to YouTube, so I can send you the YouTube link for this so you can look at the thing. So as we're going through these kind of different layout programs and stuff like this, if you can get access to the programs, just kind of start playing around with it. You'll have assignments in the different programs. I'm just trying to hold off giving you those assignments right now because I want to make sure that everybody has access. Okay. No questions? Everybody's clear on what's due for Wednesday? Because I'll be taking record of whatever house that you decide to work on, and then we'll go about scaling and documenting things in AutoCAD, so then we can take it and edit it in Photoshop and then lay it out in InDesign, and you'll have like a full presentation layout type situation.
Is
Yep.
the calendar on Blackboard?
Nope, I just said I cannot get in the Blackboard. For some reason, I put in multiple requests with Campus Tech to get that fixed, and nothing. So what I can do is set up a shared file for this class and share the assignments and the calendar and the syllabus and everything with you guys. So if somebody sends me an email to remind me to do that, and I'll get that done by the end of the day.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to stop this. End meeting for all. Wait, let me stop live